Good day, everyone. Meteorologist Mark Mulner here. How's everybody doing? Well, I hope you are getting prepared here along the western Florida coastline, from the Keys all the way up to Cape Coral, and even into all these towns just Northport, all the way up to St. Petersburg and Tampa. We have ongoing evacuations that have begun in the Tampa area. You can see the system's going to become a Category 4 with 140, potentially outdoing that 150 mile per hour winds here. And look at that, Category 3 by the time Thursday morning rolls around. You notice the forward speed of the system really begins to slow down here. Now watch this. Yeah, this is the GFS. It's become downright scary a little bit here. Look at this. Massive donut-shaped storm. Yeah, this could be heading barreling right into the Tampa area, right into Tampa Bay here. Take a look at this. This could be devastating here for the Tampa area. The only saving grace, it does start to encounter some dry air and some wind shear as it slows down and nears the coastline. Let's take a look at the Euro as well. We're going to compare the GFS Euro and the hurricane models. All right, let's take a look. GFS, yeah, I'm going to break it down day by day, hour by hour for you. So look at this. It crosses Cuba. This is, let's get the date and time up there, Tuesday, September 27th, 2 a.m. It is coming across Cuba. Now, it will come across Cuba pretty quickly here. It will be a 3, and it won't weaken much because this is very low land, swampland here in western Cuba. Look at this thing. Yeah, this is tremendous. This hurricane structure, look at this thing. It's just, it is a massive storm that's going to be developing here. And look at that. It's got its eyes on the southwestern Florida coastline here. You know, they're putting a lot of emphasis on up here towards Tampa, St. Petersburg, Palm Harbor. But look at this. You have to watch out here in Northport, all the way down here to Cape Coral and even Naples. You're going to have some surge. You're going to be on the east side of the system. Now take a look. Watch this. Watch how the system this is Wednesday at 2 a.m., the 28th. Watch how agonizingly slow this moves. This is 5 a.m. And look at this. This is 8 a.m. Look how it really starts to slow down. This is 11 a.m. So it really hasn't moved much. Still a Category 4 by this point. And look at this. Some of the eastern eye wall is getting into parts of areas just to the west of Cape Coral here, west of Fort Myers. Here's Northport here. So you're going to start to see some of this heavy, if I can turn this just slightly, look how close this eastern part of the eye wall is here to the coastline. So essentially what you have going on here is this system is going to be paralleling the coast, but it's going to be coming in a right angle. So, yeah, this is going to bring surge. This, if the GFS is correct here with this, it's going to be the worst case scenario here for Tampa Bay because all this water is going to be funneled in. Now, there is a saving grace here. Watch this as I move this map into motion here. See how we kind of lose the eastern eye wall? This is Wednesday at 5 p.m. We have some dry air that's wrapping around in from the west and northwest here. And there is some wind shear as well in the wake of this trough lifting out across parts of the mid-Atlantic by this time. So that is the only saving grace. By this point, the heaviest winds could likely, and rain will be on the north side. We still have part of the southern eye wall here. And initially, there will be an eye wall moving through parts of Tampa Bay here. So you're not completely off the hook here, but look at this. Yeah, the system really starts to slow down. This is 11 p.m. Wednesday. So we have essentially half of an eye wall here. But keep in mind, the flow is cyclonic here. So we're going to continue to pile up water at this point. All these areas, even south and west here. Now, you're going to start potentially seeing some water rises up here into parts of the panhandle and parts of north central Florida coastline as well. So you're going to want to watch for that. This system, and I'll show you the Euro momentarily. The Euro really gets into something really quirky offshore here, and that could be detrimental potentially if you're up here in the Florida panhandle. So stay tuned. It's going to come up here in just a couple minutes, but look at this. This is Thursday at 8 a.m. Yeah, it hasn't moved much. Look at this. The heaviest precipitation is just to the north here. You can see of Tampa, and it is just continuing to slow down and stall here. This is terrible news, but look how it kind of just starts to conglomerate into this, this trough type scenario, you start to see it form into this like comma shape here. So it's starting to become at this point potentially extratropical because, it's got a lot of dry air wrapping around it. You can see by this point. But don't get me wrong. Even at this point, let's take a look at the timestamp on this. Even at this point, Friday at 2 p.m., yeah, it hasn't moved much. It's still a pretty strong system, and there's going to be a big wind field with this storm, and look at that. We start to get some heavy rain into parts of the Carolinas here, and that moves up to the mid-Atlantic for their Sunday, October 2nd, and they're into parts of the Northeast, but it looks like, on the GFS, most of this heads out to sea, which could be, some good news here. All right, so let's take a look at the Euro. Brings it right up across the western tip of Cuba. Take a look at this. So, yeah, this is essentially Wednesday, right around noon, or just after noon. Essentially, it looks in the same location, or just maybe a tad bit to the west than the GFS. That's interesting because the GFS has been the more westerly model, whereas lately the Euro has brought this a little bit further west. So this would bring, the thunderstorms and eastern side of the system in a little bit later by about 6 or 7 hours. But look at that. Look how the Euro kind of drags this system right up along the coastline here. Let me stop it right here. This is Thursday morning. So from Wednesday morning to Thursday morning, this does not move very fast. And I showed you that on the GFS too. So they were pretty in agreement with the system slowing down. And I'll show you why the system's going to slow down the way it is. But you can see the Euro's bringing the eastern eye wall and fetch right into Tampa Bay as well, which is troubling that we have such agreement. But there is one thing the Euro does. It kind of retrogrades it a bit back here as it loses the influence to that trough in the mid-Atlantic to the north. And in its wake, we kind of get northeasterly winds, essentially, for a time. And that kind of spins the system offshore, according to the Euro. So if we have a scenario like this, it would be less detrimental to Tampa, but you're still going to have that tremendous fetch coming in here along the west coast of Florida. So by any stretch of the imagination, you're still going to get tremendous surge here into Tampa Bay. But one thing to note, if you're up in the Florida Panhandle and you're looking at the Euro, definitely do not let your guard down, because a system like this, skipping up along the coast, if it does try to wobble a little bit further to the west, heaven forbid, you could get tremendous amounts of, surge. But not only that, lots of tree and power line damage from a system like this, even if it's only a Category 1 by the time it reaches you. So watch out here. All right, take a look at this. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits. This is always fun to look at. This is what the simulated satellite infrared is going to look like. Look how big this eye is going to be. This is essentially on early Wednesday morning. So, yeah, this goes to show you this system is a lot bigger than just a point, and it starts to get a little bit more ragged as Wednesday wears on. But look at that. That still looks pretty healthy despite, some dry air trying to entrain around this system. Take a look at that. That's Wednesday at just after noon. And look at that. Yeah, you start to lose some of the higher cloud tops, but look at this. You still have an eye that's intact at this point, and it's moving in the direction of Tampa Bay here. And look at that. It kind of becomes a mishmash at this point. It is moving onshore. This is later Thursday morning here. And look at that. That kind of moves just up and becomes a classic comma shaped as it becomes extra tropical. All right, so thanks to Tropical Tidbits here, I wanted to show you something. Shows the dry air with the moist air. Of course, the moist air is denoted by the green here. Take a look at that. So you have this tremendous storm. This is the GFS first, and then I'll take the Euro momentarily. But this is all this dry air to the north. There's that trough that's kicking on to the northeast here. And that's going to leave a wake here of drier air that's coming down. And look how it starts to wrap around this system. You start to see all down in the Keys here. After this hurricane passes, your humidity is going to actually drop here in the Florida Keys. Now, look what starts to happen here. Yeah, you have this very tight wound dark green ring here. That's a very good eye wall, even on the south side. But watch what starts to happen here as we go in time. You start to lose that on the south side because essentially you have this drier intrusion. And look at that, even places like Miami, your humidity is going to be dropping by Thursday morning. So after this hurricane passes to your south, places like Cape Coral, you're going to see this, air system dry out. and you're literally getting the system surrounded by dry air, which is going to essentially cut the system off. You see all this moisture to the northeast, that's pushing pretty much far to the northeast here, but you got this tremendous amount of dry air that this system's going to be battling. And that's essentially why this is going to weaken from a Category 4 to potentially a 1, depending on where it makes landfall. But keep in mind, the surge is still going to be in motion from when it was a 4. So that's why we have to prepare for this system to come in as Category 3 or 4 storm surge here. Now look at this. This is by Friday, early Friday morning here. You really start to have this dry air and train in on the east side. And that could be our only, one of our saving graces. And you start to have, look at the wind barbs here. Lots of wind shear as well here on the southern and southeast side of the system. So essentially the system skips up along the coast. The GFS now is kind of indicating that as well. You can see there. So the GFS brings it inland just a little bit. The Euro, let me show you the Euro here. So here we go with the Euro. Very similar. You can see just before the dry air starts to wrap around, you have this trough to the north. This is going to lift out. And essentially the system is kind of cut off from the south at this point. So you still have these easterly feeder bands coming off of Cuba and the Bahamas, and that's helping to feed the north side of the system. But the south side starts to die here, essentially. This is later Wednesday morning. And see how it skips up along the coast? There you have it. The Euro shows it even more pronounced. This dry air. It's going to seem very odd to you after this hurricane passes that you're going to feel a lot drier down here in South Florida than you are up here in the northern part of the Panhandle and parts of Tampa. And look how the Euro just skips it up along the coast. But you see, this starts to form more of a subtropical system at this point because you got this dry air coming up on the south and east side, and you still have this moisture to the north. It starts to become a classic comma-shaped here. All right, so thanks to the National Hurricane Center here for the surge maps. You can see surge is going, as we go up the coast and you get these bays, the eye is going to be moving up just in this fashion. So it's going to funnel the water. See the red zone here in Tampa Bay? This is where things could get tricky. We haven't had a hurricane like this moving in the direction of the Tampa Bay since I don't think any of us can remember. But look at that, 5 to 10 feet surge. That can do tremendous damage. And even down further to the south and east here, all the way down to Bonita Beach here, Englewood, Cape Coral, you could see 4 to 7 foot surge. So this is not anything to sneeze at by any stretch of the imagination. And look at this. You still have to watch out for some surge up here in the Panhandle. If some of these Euro runs, if they're correct and this kind of bounces back up to the northwest, you could actually see a scenario where you get a little bit of a surge and then lots of wind out of this system. And if you take a look at this, this is the jet flow and the upper air winds at 250 millibars. This is way, way up in the atmosphere, our steering currents. There's our high pressure system, all these southwest winds. This system, it's pushing it into the Florida coastline here, essentially. But one thing to note is here, up here, there is our trough. Look how that's slowly kicking out. And one thing to note with these troughs, on the backside of these troughs, you always have much colder air funneling back in. So the flow, as I showed you on the humidity map, is more towards this direction. So essentially you have two different forces acting on this system, and it's like, which force is going to end up being the driving factor to driving the storm? So essentially that's why I think the system is going to grind to a complete halt right around the Tampa Bay area. All right, so let's take a look at the upper air maps. What is feeding into this storm? Well, this is massive trough. That's what's drawing this system north. This is the GFS to start off here. So Ian is being drawn further north, but look what's happening here. We got massive blocking up here in Greenland. This trough is weakening as Ian's coming north. So eventually this trough is going to weaken and kick out slowly to the northeast and fizzle out. That's going to leave Ian slowing down here, essentially. And in its wake, it will leave some northeasterly winds here. You can see this high pressure out in the Atlantic kind of taking over, this next high. These high pressures, the way these winds are, especially this high, you're going to start to see some northeasterly winds here. So essentially what you're going to see for a time on later Wednesday and Thursday, the system might try to do what the Euro does. Now, the GFS is a little less emphasis on the high pressure to the north. You see how it slows down there into Friday? but it kind of meanders to the north here, and let's see what it does in the long term. It blocks it here. It's kind of stuck over the Appalachians and the Carolinas here as we have this big old high to the north here. Losing the blocking up here in Greenland, though. That could signal a pattern change coming here, but look at that. It gets caught up in the next trough Thursday, October 6th, and pushes it out to the northeast. Now, taking a look at the Euro here, there is the trough. Here's Ian down here. Now, let's take a look as we put this into motion. The Euro is doing exactly what the GFS did here, shrinking, and the trough is losing influence. Now, see, it's a little bit further to the west than the GFS here as we go towards Wednesday into Thursday. Look at this. It actually kicks the trough out quicker here Thursday morning into early afternoon. So we're losing influence quicker. That pushes these northeasterly winds from these high pressure systems more in the direction of Ian at this point. And that's why you're getting the storm retrograding a little bit back towards the west and northwest on the Euro. So watch out in the panhandle here. This thing might try to skip a little bit more to the north if these high-pressure systems have their way, like the Euro thinks will happen if that trough to the northeast here of the mid-Atlantic and northeast kicks and weakens quicker to the northeast. Now, let's see what the Euro does. Does it stall it? Yeah, it kind of washes it out in the northeast. I mean, it's looking better that this system might not even make it into your neck of the woods that first week of October. So that would be really good news there. All right, looking at the total precipitation amounts here out of the Euro. Yeah, so this takes us through, let's back this up to, there we go. Okay, so this takes us through the first part of the weekend. Now, keep in mind, this is if, things play out according to the Euro, keeping the eye just slightly more offshore. This would be 8 to 15 inches just offshore. Now, the thing that's scary about this is if it wobbles just a little bit to the east, some of these detrimental totals could be stretching further north. The thing to note is thankfully in South Florida, that humidity that I was showing you is going to be cut off, and you're going to dry out even faster as the dry air wraps around the system. All right, so let's take a look at the GFS here. It is a bit further east, and the rainfall totals are a little bit more troubling here. You can see upwards of 10 to 15 inches just north of Tampa here. So your big thing in Tampa southward is going to be the storm surge and the wind coming in. You're still going to get 4 to 8 inches of rain, maybe locally higher amounts, but it's that northern part of the eye wall that stays intact. That's where you're going to get the 15-inch rainfall totals. Now, this is going to stretch into the weekend and early next week, so we're going to start to see an inland flooding threat with this in North Florida up through Georgia and the Carolinas. All right, so I wanted to show you the simulated radar here. We're going to take the HRRR model since we're within that zone. So take a look. This is Monday. We're already starting to get the first feeder band. This is later on in the evening, Monday into Tuesday morning, really early Tuesday morning. See the moisture just forming on the northeast side of this system. So yeah, you're going to already start to see shower and thunderstorm action if you're south of Cape Coral in places like Miami and southward into the Everglades. So let's take a look here. This system moves to the north. Look at this. Yeah, so you're going to really start to Tuesday at 5 p.m., Cape Coral here, all the way up the coast here to Northport, and you'll start to see shower and thunderstorm activity here on the south side of Tampa by this point. So keep in mind, this system is not just a point of origin, but look at that. You can start to see the eye there, and it starts to wobble to the east ever so slightly. But Wednesday at 5 a.m., that's when you're really going to start to see the onslaught of some of these eastern feeder bands coming on shore here. You see them just right off the coast and coming on shore here near Englewood and up towards Sarasota as well. And you go up the coast here, Tampa, Clearwater. It's just going to seem like a rainy day at first, but this is going to get very gusty as Wednesday wears on here. And take a look at this. Hopefully all your plans of preparation will be rushed to completion, because look at this. We start to see this eastern part of this system. You start to see some dry air. See, there's the evidence of the dry air funneling up on the eastern end of the system. But here is the eye and the eastern eye wall. But you have this feeder band that will have wind gusts probably over 100 miles an hour here coming on shore. And then keep in mind, this is Wednesday at 7 a.m. This is well before landfall here. So we're going to start to see tornado action as well as these systems rotate over land. These thunderstorms as they head from southeast to northwest here and along the coastline here. We will start to see these thunderstorms move on shore. Now let's take a look. Continue to put this into motion. It goes for a couple more frames here. Look at this. Yeah, this starts to resemble more of a comma shaped, and that might be our only saving grace here. Notice how we get a dry slot here. Don't let that fool you, though, because look what's happening here. Yeah, the eye is literally right here at this point. Now, it's kind of broken, but we're still going to have these southwesterly winds and water piling up along the shoreline here. In Tampa, you're going to really start in this northeast to northwest side of this system. You're going to start to see some of the tremendous winds, over 100 miles per hour, possibly 120 gusts here. As they move up. This is Wednesday at 11 a.m. now. Let's see if we can go just a couple more frames here, squeeze a couple more frames out of this. You can see, there it is. So there's the eye wall. It's trying to reform here. If you're near Englewood, up towards Northport, watch out here, because this eastern part of this eye wall might just start to wobble towards you. And look at this. This is noon on Wednesday, and then we head into, there it is, Wednesday at 1 p.m. You start to see the system kind of HRRR kind of taking the eye up along the coast, paralleling it just like this. Tampa continuing to get buffeted here with tremendous wind and rain as well. All right, so what do we have here into the Western Pacific? This is Noru. Yeah, it's a pretty big mess. Typhoon Noru here, expected to become a super typhoon. If you are in central part of Vietnam, Da Nang here, you are going to be in ground zero of this storm. So let's take a look here. Look as this storm moves towards the shoreline. This is Tuesday, September 27th at 8 a.m. Look at that. That's a pretty formidable typhoon moving inland. You can see the eye. The only saving grace is the GFS is kind of wobbling the eye just to the north, but you still see you're going to get some pretty bad banding action here from Da Nang southward. And then look at that. The surge may come on shore if this verifies just north of you, but still, initially, look how the storm starts to veer southwest here. You can see the eye, southern eye wall moving right on shore in Da Nang here. This is essentially Tuesday at 8 p.m. Now, it's 8 p.m. our time in North America, so take a look at this. This would be a devastating storm here, and it's likely to be a devastating storm, and then it becomes an inland major flooding event there. Look at that as that heads inland, and look at that. You're not completely done. You have more tropical moisture behind it. We'll continue to watch it, but there could be further systems forming, and we'll watch it here for the Philippines as well. Thankfully, there will be a system up towards Japan that will recurve, but look at this. Here we go again. This is Saturday, October 1st. We could have another typhoon forming, and do I dare say it, moving right in the same general direction here as Vietnam. Look at that. Maybe just a little bit further to the north. This is Sunday, October 2nd. But that would be tremendous, devastating damage for Vietnam if we were to have two super typhoons make landfall in such within a week period. And Eastern Pacific, we have an area that could have a 50% chance through day 5. Let's put this into motion. We'll see if we can get anything out of this. There it is. Yeah, it becomes a hurricane. Now look at this. This is what I was a little worried about. This is Saturday, October 1st. GFS here taking it kind of in the direction maybe of Cabo San Lucas. Let's take a look here. Let's continue this in motion. And look at this. Yeah, it tries to make a run for Cabo San Lucas. Yeah, you've been dodging these all season long. And look at this. This is Monday, October 3rd. You could have a strong hurricane bearing down on you here in Cabo San Lucas. And look how it kind of pinwheels just to the east. The only good news is if it pinwheels just to your east, you'll get the lesser, the lesser of the eye wall. Still be strong though, and there's still a chance that this could wobble a little bit further to the northwest, and you'd be on the really bad eastern side of this eye wall. Now, let's go. As always, I want to thank you for joining me for this edition of Weather Eastern and Hurricane Eastern. Don't forget Facebook, social media, MediaMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Hurricane Northeastern, also Susquehanna Weather, also MediaMark.com, WeatherNortheastern.com, Twitter @WeatherEastern. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell button if you haven't already. Question or comment down below. Let's keep the weather conversation going. Thanks for joining me.